All right. We are live back with the Finance Bros. We're going to get into it really quick today, or tonight, rather, should I say. So, we're going to talk about, as always, finances, and we're going to touch on the single life. Right now, you look at YouTube, you look out there, you see all kinds of different opinions on the single life, but it's usually portrayed. And, I'm married, but I haven't been married that long. But, I look back and I could certainly have my own I have my own views of how it was, and everybody else is going to have their own views. But I think it's important we talk about the finances behind it. And a lot of the fun that can be had in the single life obviously costs money. That's no problem if you have it, but if you don't, then that's a problem. And if you don't have it and you're faking it, it's an even bigger problem. So, want to get into that, talk about what it's really like as far as a single life, and the financial aspect, and then talk about, what should it be like if you're preparing for marriage or if you just plan on being single for the long run. How do you manage that? How do you make it happen? Without further ado, let me go ahead and bring up first. We'll start off with Sim. What up?
Man, what's up, man? We're talking about being single versus being married, man. I'm waiting for Oprah to take me off the market, man.
I hear you, man.
I know Stedman's getting up there, you might want like some young blood,
Waiting on the big money. I hear you, man.
No prenup, I'm gonna be sitting on the beach sipping Mai Tais and taking it easy. Oprah, just let me know,
Say just hit me up. Just hit me up.
Let me know when you're ready, I'm here for it.
Saying if you don't want to do with me, at least send the Cash App. You know what I'm saying? Hit the Cash App or or a little super chat.
Perry, did you hear that there were people last year that actually had this scheme? What they would do is they would invite Bill Gates to their wedding, right? Mm-hmm. Not knowing that he's not going to make it, right? And so as a substitute for him not being there, he would send like a $10,000 check. So he would say, "Oh, I assume that this is someone that I know.
Unfortunately, that's crazy. I'm not able to make it." That's crazy, man.
So here you go.
He's just like, boom, not gonna make it. Just send it.
Bam. That should be enough right there.
Should we should have a good conversation tonight, man. I'm excited about it. Let me go ahead and we will add the intentional millionaire to the stream.
What is going on, gentlemen? How's it going?
Doing good, man. Doing really good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good, man. Good.
Another day in paradise.
Good to hear. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So obviously this stream is about really the single life. I think there's a couple angles, right? I think in its nature, right? It depends on what your goals are, first of all. Not everybody, you hear this all the time. Some people don't think marriage is, it's not natural. You hear that all the time or whatever. That's fine if that's what you think, right? I think for me, before we even get into the marriage aspect, let's just think about people, right? Whether you call it whether it was marriage or not, people have always been in groups. That's just, it's been that way forever. Families, groups. So my take is, it's now there are people who just really want to do their own thing forever. And if that's who you truly are, have at it. But I don't know that, at least to the level of seclusion, like I'm doing my own thing forever, seclusion. I don't know that that's the best thing, over time. And those are two different conversations. It's one thing to be, just because you're single doesn't mean you're Bear Grylls, right? You're not roughing it all out on your own. But I think where it comes to finances is, and I bring that up because there are people in seclusion, people on the Great Frontier, Alaska, all that, who literally spend almost nothing. So, right, that's not the conversation we're having, though, right? Because they're living off the land, yada yada. But where it comes to, standard society, let's say, let's say at least for those who haven't been married post college on into 40s, 50s, someone who's not been married or was married and is no longer, you start to get into that. I think a lot of stuff can be done as a single man I'm talking about, becoming a millionaire, being on the right path, doing what you need to be doing. But I think a lot of destruction and a lot of money can be spent also. And a lot of money people don't have. So I think that's the difference, is the money you have versus if you have it to do and if you don't. So that's just something I want to kind of draw that comparison and just let people know what we're specifically talking about. So we're talking about for those who, for the most part, plan to get married. We'll start with that. That time period when they're not, it doesn't matter if it's 10, 20 years, whatever. We're going to talk about what it honestly probably looks like for the average person first. And then we'll go from there. So let me really quickly put it this way. We already know the stats. The average brother, right? We're men, is making, I want to say it's in between 44. It's around mid 40,000s. I think it's actually a little bit below that. So that's the type of figure we're talking about on average. So we'll deal with the 45 to 100,000. Anybody above that, man, we could get into that, but we know that that's not where most people are at. So let's focus on the 45 to 100,000. Sim, what do you think that looks like for the average person? When you talk about, we know the average is pretty much 45. So if you want to touch on what that looks like, that single life you think it looks like, do you think it looks like what's kind of painted out there when you just hear, the single life? I mean, do you think that the pictures you see are the way people talk about it, that's really what it is? Or, you just give your opinion on it overall?
I mean, the dating climate is pretty stiff out here, It's very much a notion. I remember working at like a blue collar job, or maybe not. Yeah, you can call it blue collar, one of the power companies here. And they were saying to me, I used to have a conversation and I'd say something like, there's no romance without finance. They would tell me no money, no honey. And so it gives you the impression that if you don't really have the ability to take a woman out to a nice place, that you're not going to really have no romantic life. And, I challenged that for a long time as a single guy. And I think that as a guy who's making $45,000, it looks like Chipotle, for your dates, maybe Starbucks for your dates, taking walks at the park and having picnics at the park, and maybe going on hikes, It looks like a very simple life. Now, that's what your offerings look like. But then what does it look like as far as your opportunities, right? Because your opportunities are only going to be as good as your willingness to spend money a lot of the times. Because what happens, I think, in these dating streets is that women want to be able to brag about the place that their man is taking them, unless they come from the background where that's not something that really defines them. They don't really care about what their friends think a man should be doing, because maybe they had an opportunity to see someone in their life who was also humble and didn't have to project this opulent life. But I'd say a lot of people look at the conversations we were having a couple of months ago, where women are saying they don't even want to go to Cheesecake Factory. Now, maybe it was 20 years ago, but women were saying, yeah, let's go to Cheesecake Factory. Let's go there. I want to go on a nice day to Cheesecake Factory. But now the conversation is very different. It's like no chain restaurants. They want to go to the Perry Steakhouse. They want to go to the Chop House. They want to go to Stir. They want to go to these very nice places. And how many people can spend $100 per person on a plate, at 45,000 too? I mean, that's wild. That's almost probably, what's that? Maybe 2,000 every month.
That's
2000.
about
4,000.
yeah, you're talking what 40,000.
That's like almost 4,000, maybe 3,800 or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, I like that because when you start to mention the stuff that's really going on, right? Like you said, they don't want to go to Cheesecake Factory. When you start to talk about that, you start to see, okay, man, like when you think about the average person's how much they're making, and it's like they don't want to go to Cheesecake Factory. Well, they don't want to go there. Where do they want to go? And here's the thing, real quick, and then we're going to ask Intentional Millionaire the same thing. Place I like to go in Atlanta is Pappadeaux. Now, we're not going there without laying a bill down. Place is packed every single time I go. They got multiple. There's like 3 of them here, I think. 3 or 4. You're gonna lay 100 down every single time. So, I mean, that's where you got to start looking at it, right? And that's where lifestyle really comes into it. And you take, there's just a lot of stats of other stuff we've seen, and you start to see it. It just doesn't add up. So we're seeing one image of what it looks like it's supposed to be versus what it really is. Intentional. Give me your thoughts. What you think it really looks like for the average single man out there. And we're basing that off of 45,000, which is a little over what the average is, if I'm correct. What do you think it really looks like, out there at for someone who's living the average, making the average amount of money, but is single, and you got housing, you got all these things that you have to be accountable for, right? What do you think that looks like?
Well, I got 2 answers for that. The first one being, I don't think it's hard for somebody single making 50,000, because one perspective is they really shouldn't be dating because they got something more important that they should be doing. And the reason why I say that is because making 45,000 after you factor in taxes and just taking care of the foundation, fundamental financial concepts as far as taxes go, there's not going to be a lot of money left over. So I think you have that perspective. So I think it's expensive if you want to be responsible. Now, on the other side of that, and that's why I say I have 2 answers. If you don't want to be responsible, then it's not expensive. Here's the reason why. Because you get a chance to choose who you want to date. And you should not be dating someone that's only interested in being expensive, meaning you spending money, meaning they're showing you that they ain't in it for you no way. They just in it for what they can get out of you. Because I know for me, and just from all the people that I see, their best experiences was not where they was eating at or what they done. It was about them getting to know each other as individuals, as people. So I think that that's the first concept and I know in this newer generation, it's more of what can you do for me? How can I floss? How can I show you that I got the bag and all this stuff? But I think you're already setting yourself up for not the best outcome long term, in my opinion.
Right. Good points, man. Good points. And just to draw the point that, remember we talked about Americans living check to check. That was, as a whole, that was 62%. So that alone, we already know. If you're living check to check, now that was, with that's probably got stats of kind of everyone in there, right? So that's just, it's just saying the average American, because I don't know if it was put as households or not, but I think that was pretty much across the board. So I think it's probably pretty easy to say if you are living check to check. A lot of the extra stuff that's really, put it this way, if you live in check to check, you can't take someone. I don't even know if you can take someone, let alone we're talking about Cheesecake Factory, I don't even know if you can take someone, if you're living check to check, I don't even know if you should really be taking them to Chipotle. You need to get the corn at Publix. You need to buy the corn, the beans. You need to fix Chipotle at the crib. I mean, that's the truth, right? I mean, and even, Intentional said you choose, right? You do choose, right? And that's where I do think, and I'm not going to go deep into Dave Ramsey today, but I do think that's where there is something to what he's saying about you got to have some grit. When he says beans and rice, you got to, it's a mindset you got to have, because people will just keep on spending and going in debt until either they go broke, run into credit issues, or they get a come up and are able to, but the habits don't change is the bad part. So you keep getting the come ups, you keep doing the same thing. So that's the thing right there. But I think with all the statistics that we've seen up to this point, the average person, and I like what Intentional Millionaire said. I think Intentional, the challenge that I would challenge you, and maybe it's not even needs to be challenged, is I think a big part of that is school, right? If you are making 50 and you went to school, and let's just say you owe 50, you're running into some trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like I and not necessarily, but I'm saying when you start to look at the cost of housing, you start to add these things up. Like we were talking about it. Remember, you were like, "What? That's $3,800." Well, when you start to look at housing, depending on where you live, you're dropping $1,000 for a 1-bedroom. Back when I had a 1-bedroom, I was paying $1,100. So, and then when I was in Baltimore, I was paying $1,400 or $1,500. So outside of Baltimore, in between DC and Baltimore. So a lot of this does depend on, are you in the city? Are you in the country? But there's far less opportunities in the country. That we know that. That's why the city is really where most of the population's at, because that's where economic opportunity is. So I say that to say, look, if you're making that amount and you do have bills outside of the average, right? Because the question is, right, I think there's two profiles. I think there's the person who, whether it's an assembly line, whether it's a factory, whether it's a plant, and you're making, we'll say 25 an hour. It's roughly like 50,000. And it might even be more because a lot of them work overtime. That person is going to be better off than the person who went to school and now has these loans making that. Right. So those are two different people doing two different types of jobs. But that's where I think because that person, you work in the factory, you have that money, but you don't have all the expenses with it. Right. Because necessarily you probably don't have college debt to the same that someone who went to college for. So I think there's different profiles of people there, but I definitely think just in this conversation, I would say that if you're going to be the person who is single and makes average money, you don't need to have student loan debt. If you do, you're in even more trouble. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Hold on. Tim, did you said that don't date at all? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think some guys shouldn't date at all. I think some guys really need to get it out the mud first. Why is that? Because it's other factors that we have to think about outside of just getting a woman. Because you have to know that it's fundamental things that you need prior to a woman, meaning you got to build some character. 2, you got to build some intuition. You got to get good at decision making on the fly. Why this more important is because if you get with the woman and then you have a child, regardless of how you do it, you should do it in marriage. But if you still have a child outside of marriage, you got to be able to transfer knowledge, skills, character, things like that. But you have to equip yourself to do it. I think too many times we just make everything let's throw some stuff out there and see what sticks. And I just think that's a bad way to live. I think that's a bad way to strategize. I just think that's what we do wrong so much. I think America as a whole promotes that. It promotes just do whatever, say whatever, be whatever. It's just no rules, no standards, no structure. And this is how you get in a mess. So I say, if you making 50, then my next question is, if you happy with that, I'm not talking to you. But if you're not happy with that and you want more, then you need to put that off to the side, dating, and you need to go out there and gain more skills. Why is that? Because one thing Perry said, I totally agree with the two archetypes. The one that's work a job, work at a factory that can get overtime that doesn't have student loans, and somebody that went to college and has student loans. That is two different archetypes. But for me, I just say, put yourself in a position to have an overflow, because this just getting by, if something changed that outside of your control, you lose ground and you get further in the hole. Whereas if you were operating a surplus, you can always be above the curve, above the hole. That's kind of how I look at it.
Man,
I think that makes sense.
Man, it's so easy for Tim to say that, man. All that testosterone and hormones flowing, man. Come on, man. You know, when you're in your early 20s, man, you're like, most of your decision making is motivated by your hormones and your testosterone. And, you know, I agree with you that you should definitely be in position, and no money, no honey is what they say. But I say that 50 years ago, Grandpa didn't have to have all that in place, Tim. 50 years ago, Grandpa didn't have to have everything together. Now, did he struggle? Maybe, partially. But he was prioritizing family at a young age, and he was prioritizing, you know, not running the streets and doing a whole bunch of dating. So the context is a little bit different. I'd say that maybe the waiting part just wasn't as present because the intentionality was with just your high school sweetheart or the one person that you admired. I don't know, man. Like at 18, 20 years old, at 18, 20 years old, I would say it's easy for me to say, but I don't know if it's the same exact thing that these young men are doing. But salute to the monk life. So if you're gonna say the monk life for the guys who don't really have it together, how long should they go ahead and commit to that, in your opinion, Tim?
I think they should commit to it till they put themselves in a situation where they can sustain somebody else outside of themselves. And I'm not saying they need to do that forever, because like you said, you have needs, but you got to think about, I'm just saying, think about if the alternative, if things don't go in your way, meaning a child comes into play. So would you rather bring a child into the world where you start in 100% at the bottom? See, this is where we got to get out of just our sexual drive and get into our strategic personal drive, our inner drive first. Right. Because the difference is, you brought up a great point. The difference was, if you go back to when our parents and grandparents was in the dating market compared to now, was everything wasn't based on material things. Everything was based on us working together, building together, being together. But we're in a new era now. And while you're putting all your time chasing something that's showing you that the next best thing coming along ain't gonna be what you know way. That does not make sense. Because here's the thing you have to know. If you don't get yourself straight, who is? No one is going to come save you. The reason why I'm saying that is because when I look back on my life, that's something that I could have done better at. Right. I could have built this so much faster if I wasn't dating, doing all this stuff, trying to get to where the women are at, going to the parties, going to the fun skate, going to the skating ring, doing all that, I could have been having a purpose, and then I could have brought back more of my time versus in my 40s. I could have done it more closer to my late 20s, early 30s. That's why I'm saying that.
You know, look, I see what you mean too. I think dating is just one aspect of that. Even this is a good way of looking at it, because at some point, what Tim is touching on is at the end, it's self-control. Because you're spending, you don't have it is the problem. So, for example, the other version of that has nothing to do with dating is if right now you get your check on Friday and you don't pay any attention to it, you're going to do whatever you do that weekend. And then, okay, on Monday, I'll sit down and figure out what I owe. You lack self-control. And people do that all the time. Like, oh, well, let me drink a little bit tonight. It's Friday. Let me enjoy myself and unwind this weekend. I know it hit my account. I'm not going to pay attention to it. I'm a miniature ball out, and then I'll look at it Monday and get it together. And then you're sweating the beginning of the week before that next check comes. And then you do it all over again. And before you know it, you got a credit card bill. It starts to add up. It's a self-control problem.
Right.
And let's face it, we know already that there's tons of people who can't afford it. Like think about this. I just said it. You know, we'll go to Papado, drop $100. And by the way, that was without alcohol. That's not even alcohol. That's just to eat, right? So I see people with the big old fish bowl drinks and all that. You telling me everybody up in that crowded restaurant can afford to be dropping it like that? There is no way. But they're doing it over and over and over. And that's so you know, so all that though, that's one form of it, but there's tons of forms, not even with the dating aspect, that you just look at the money and it's lack of self-control.
Right. And that's what I mean, because what I'm speaking to is not just the dating, because you're going to spend money to get yourself looking fly to get on the date. So that's more money you spending that you don't necessarily have. You don't want to go on a date with old stuff. You're going to go get fresh. Get your, whatever you feel that you like to wear. If it's suits, if it's polos, if it's jerseys, I don't know. But now you're going to go spend money on that. You're going to buy you some fresh shoes. You're going to do all that. And then you still got to pay for the date. That's my point. It's so much stuff that you're going to do on the other side of that. You're going to go get a fresh cut. Cuts right now run you about $40. So, I mean, you're going to do a lot just to get to the finish line. And then on top of that, the expectation financially is going to most of the time be on you if you're not even in the right mind space to understand that you should be dating someone. If you're going to date, you should be dating someone that's interested in your character, not necessarily dating someone that's just interested in what you have. Because here's the thing that guys need to know. Now, I'm going to say this. This is going to be unpopular, but I've got to say it. Because the ones that interested in you ain't got to do all this extra stuff anyway if you want to get some. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. But when you're doing all this extra stuff paying all this extra stuff for this woman, and she ain't gonna give you none no way. 9 times out of 10. Let's be honest. So we got to stop all of this buffoonery. To me, I just think we're doing too much for something that we don't necessarily want long term anyway. And then on top of that, let's be honest too, and this is from my anecdotal experiences, but what I also correlate with that is the woman that genuinely is interested in you as a person, if you do have a child with them, they're going to be more reasonable than someone that's just interested in material things. Let's be clear.
Man, we need like a filtering mechanism, Tim. I need to find this woman that wants me for my character. I need to find this woman that is not going to just try to wring me through the mud or take me through the ringer. I mean, come on, Tim. Listen, if you were 25 today, how would you even start to vet this young woman, man? Where would you start? Like, what's the first thing you would look at, Tim?
It's easy. I would ask, hey, let's go hang out, get to know each other. I'm not doing a whole bunch of goofy stuff. That's just me. That's how I was then. That's how I'm gonna do now. And
Right.
what she say at that point is gonna let you know. So I'm gonna say, hey, I don't know you. You don't know me. We could just meet Starbucks. We could meet library. Let's just do something different. And that's what it is. And if she say, I'm not doing that, okay, bye. See, it's the problem is because a lot of men don't know these two words and it's hard for them to say no. That's it. It's hard for young men to say no because they not taught that no is not bad. They taught that no, you have to say yes to everything because as a man, that means that you don't supposed to have no standards. See,
Right.
it's because the difference is when I look at even somebody young, that's what I told you. I was talking with my nephew, right? And one of the things he said is he don't necessarily know when a woman genuinely is interested in him. I say, well, that tells me then you don't do a great job of having a conversation. Your communication is flawed.
How much? Okay, Tim. In fairness, now, at what point were you able to really gain some insight from a young lady? How old were you when you
Because
were
I had my brothers and my dad.
See, you had the advantage.
So that's why I'm telling you, this is what we got to be teaching. We can't keep acting like just whatever everybody's doing is the right way to do it. We got to stop that at some point. Because if not, we're just going to have to it's just going to be the next generation of young men keep chasing women. They ain't ready for a family. They're going to get them pregnant. And then they ain't going to want to be with them. And then the mother's going to raise the child. They're going to be off doing something else. Or they're going to have so much conflict and confusion. They're going to be like, F them kids. And they ain't dealing with the woman nor the kids. And then you get the whole blow up all over again.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah, I think even back to just the thing of someone saying, "Oh, I'm not eating there." Cool, you never see me again. Because I'm not taking you nowhere. I'm never going to talk to you again. It's that simple. Because if you're doing it now, I'm not signing up for a lifetime of you telling me you're not like you're too good to eat. Like, you know what I'm saying? You're too good for simple things. Like, we're just trying to get to know each other. And you want me to drop 400 or 500? It's crazy. It's crazy. But you know what? There are people who will, and there's people for them. I'm just not one of them. I never was one of them. It's just that simple. Once again, it always comes down to self-control, and you do see patterns. You will see patterns, right? So, if you're already saying, I'm not eating at that place, well, you'll also say, I don't want that ring that you paid for me. You'll also, it's just a pattern. That's what it comes down to, so, and I think I really think that at the core of this too, when you look at the finances, are that people in general are just like, it's certainly in America, but it's not just here, but are just like the government, just overspending. That's just, at the end of the day, it's lack of self-control, overspending, and that in general is the biggest problem with every aspect of it. And that is what gets seen online, is you're telling people do this, do that. But the truth is, even online, there's a lot of faking going on. You know what I mean? I know, like, it comes down to yourself. Like, here's the thing. We can get on here and talk to people about their finances. But what I know right now is I have no credit card debt. None. Zero. Now, do I put stuff on my credit card? Yeah, I pay it off. Have I always done that? Nope. Didn't always do it, but it's just about living it, I think. And I think there's a lot of people that do more talking than probably living it. And I do believe the majority of people, I don't believe the majority of people that are single, married too, for the most part, but we are talking about single tonight. I don't think that the majority of people single making the average amount of money, because we know how the average person's lifestyle outpaces, how much they make. I don't believe they're doing that great. I don't believe that. I think more than 50%. I think, it's not perfect, but I think any two single individuals. Now, these are percentages, right? So no, there can certainly be 10 in a room and them all be fine. But at the end of the day, I think any place you go, overall, you'll see that 50% or more likely, if they're single, then there is some struggle there. There's either some struggle or some faking it there, because we know that if you're making average money, this is for average money, that with the expenses of everything that have went up, you're probably not doing fantastic.
Hey, I got something to say. I'm just thinking about it. I'm laughing here. I remember I was dating someone. Dude, I had to be like every bit of like 19. I don't even think I was 19. I might have been 18. No, somewhere it's before my 18th birthday. And I remember my girlfriend's sister asked me, she says, you know what? You act like you're rich. You buying gifts for my sister from Victoria's Secret. I'm buying her perfumes, 2 types of perfumes, and buying her beds and chocolates and all this, right? And she says to me, she's like, you act like you're rich, And I said, well, that's my girl. I'm going to do whatever is necessary. And I look at it today, these people don't talk to me, right? None of them talk to me, man. Woo, man. It's rough.
But the key thing, that's a great example, because the key thing is it's not really about the finances that's important. The key thing is the discipline. Yeah. Which is more critical than anything, because if you can do it with a woman, knowing that your testosterone, your urges at its highest, you can do it in all other aspects of your life. And the thing a lot of men have to know is that's the most attractive component that you can ever have.
Right.
If you short, if you skinny, if you overweight, if you anything that you want to say, any negative that you want to call it, if you got discipline, I guarantee you're going to attract a mate. Is no question of that. But you got to build that. You have to work on that. It's like anything. It just don't happen. You have to work at it. You got to do it like a muscle.
Well, and it's funny you said that, because remember I said you see those habits come up other places.
Yeah.
Now, I've mentioned the credit card. I wouldn't think, no credit card day. I wouldn't think about anything else. But also, I'm up at 6 a.m. every morning running. It's discipline. It shows up in other places. Now, you would think running at 6 a.m. has nothing to do with credit card. It's discipline. So you're absolutely right. It's going to show up in other places. People, and that's why I always say, you find someone who's calling out of work all the time, they got way other bigger problems. Their finances ain't straight. I'm not going to believe you call out and don't show up to work all the time, but you got everything, whether you're on salary or not, but everything else, your credit's good, everything. Nah, you find problems across the board. You just do. People are creatures of habit.
Because even with women, okay, most women that understand, they're not even going to raise their daughters to want to get with a guy that take them on expensive dates. They're going to be raising their daughters to get with a guy that wants you for you. That's why I'm saying that all this stuff is really just shows the confusion in everything. Because so what I'm talking to, it doesn't matter about generations. That's just a universal thing. That's a universal skill. That's across the board. Don't matter the generation. The discipline is going to be needed for whatever generation, whatever's going on technology wise. If Terminator take over, you still gonna need some discipline to fight them all. So, I mean, either way you look at it, you're going to need discipline.
And that's I agree with that. And also, let's talk about that. When you just even because we've been touching on dating. When you lead with your wallet, well, she'll leave with your wallet, and I don't mean she'll leave with it. I'm saying she'll leave someone who's just got a bigger wallet. Someone's always going to have a bigger wallet than you. Like, and you know, my wife, it had nothing to do about money. Money's not what I led with. That's not what you gonna lead with, because that's not what it's about. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but if you make your whole thing about money, somebody else is gonna come in more, and it doesn't matter who you are. You can be a celebrity. Somebody always has more than you. So that's not even something you would want to do. Certainly be someone who is faking it. Like you're faking like you got money and you don't. Like you're going in debt to take them on dates. That's even more stupid. You know what I'm saying? She gonna leave you and you're gonna be in debt. You know what I'm saying? So it does all come down to discipline. It really does. It's always discipline and self-control.
Listen, I'm over here cracking up just thinking about these people not talking to me, right? Listen, I just sat up here and calculated it for this same exact person that I was dating. I remember her sister asked me this question about me spending my money on her sister. I mean, my girlfriend's sister asked me about me spending money on her sister, why I was spending so much. I remember I had like $43 to my name, right? And I said, look, I want to be able to take her out to eat, right? So I had the choice to choose between getting a cab, and for some reason I didn't have a car, but getting a cab for me to go like 16 miles down the road, or saving the money and actually walking to the house in order for me to be able to save the money and have the date. And I remember I had a water bottle and I had like a grocery bag, and I put my water bottle inside this grocery bag, and I said, okay, I'm gonna save this money and I'm gonna walk. Man, it took me 6 hours for me to walk home. I remember watching cars that would pass me going this way, and then they would pass me again a couple of hours later going in the opposite direction. By the time I made it home, my shoulder was sore because of me carrying that water bottle, right? All I had was $43. Now, if I would have went ahead and spent the money, I would have made it there very much earlier, but then it also meant that I wouldn't be able to take her out to eat. So thinking about what Tim is talking about, I know firsthand, I thought I was saving money by me going down there, but by the time the 6 hours was wrapped up, my shoulder was hurting. There was no way I was going to be able to go out on any additional date with my girlfriend, but that's what you're trying to do out there as a young man. So I know Tim has like this monk spirit, but man, it's rough out here, man. It's rough as a young man, man. I know your pain, fellas. I know your pain.
Well, if you don't stop the habits, they're not going to stop. It just be your kids. You'll be overspending on your kids. It'll never stop. That's the thing. So it ain't like once you get married, it'll stop if you don't have those habits. You're just you'll set up a life of overspending, basically. You know, you just will. You know, so what do you guys think that a person? First of all, let's touch on some of the comments. I don't want to forget. We definitely always appreciate the supporters. So definitely salute to everybody in the comments. I just want to go through real quick and see if we have any questions real fast, and then I'll scan back through them really quick. Let's see. I don't think I saw any questions. Mainly just people entering the chat. Let's see. But yeah, I think I definitely think this is something that, I think Tim did hit the nail on the head. This is deeper than just, this is about people's habits and it's deeper. All right. So how do you, persuade or counsel the younger generation to forget their hormonal, and get focused on their purpose. You know, what is the right approach if they don't want to listen? You know, guys, I don't think you can. But let's face it, though. Let's not act like, look, man. Look. We gotta. People aren't courting anymore either. So a lot of what I know, people are like, yeah, you got to spend all this money. People are getting down, hopping in the sheets, and they ain't spending no money. We know that. Now it depends. I guess it would depend on their age or whatever. But you know, at the end of the day, I don't think the attraction and stuff. I don't think people are going to be trying to. They're not going to stop that. That is what it is. I just think I think it's more in instilling in them, me personally. I don't think it's anything about more so than the hormonal piece. I think it's more of saying, look, you don't be persuaded to spend what you do not have, period. No matter for whatever the cause be. And if you just feel like you have to go spend money on a female, well, you need to let it drive you to make enough money to be able to do it. To me, that's the thing, is you gotta put yourself in position to be able to do it and have enough discipline not to spend the money and do things like that just because you feel like you have to be dating. So I think that's part of, as you're being raised, those are things you gotta, I think you have to talk about. What do you guys think as far as to Peter Investor M's question?
I'll let the monk go first, man. Go ahead.
Can you bring the question up on the screen?
Yep, I sure can. There you go.
I think this is a multi-layer response to this question. I think first you got to see what the young person is at, because too many times they've been influenced by the wrong influencer, meaning the culture. So I think the first thing, we have to identify environment. We have to identify background. We got to get them in front of someone that they feel they can relate to and really have the conversation with them. Because if not, then you're never going to really be able to get through to a young person because they have so many other influence and distractions. So I think it's some of those fundamental things that has to be addressed first before you can even counsel and consult with a young person on what they need to do next so they can start moving towards their purpose. Because let's be honest, most of the time we all been there when we younger. Most of us is on autopilot, or we're just living because we don't know what we want to do, what we want to be. We don't have no vision. So I think the first thing is we got to identify those layers first. And then from there, that's how you can start building out what you need, what they need to do to get on a purpose. But I think too, we got to start identifying more males that have done something that can show them through example, real-time example, and not a bunch of talking, but they can show them, but also they need to be in position to be able to pour into them too. Because I think too many times a lot of the young men don't have anybody they truly can believe in and that can pour into them that's, that they see on a day in, a day out basis, or they actually can talk to and communicate with. Because they lost that in the home and they lost that in the church. So I think those are the fundamental things that needs to happen first.
Okay. Good deal. What do you think, Sim?
Man, I like that, Sam. I like that. I think that, leading with understanding your value and really someone who's, being around people who inspire you and they can help you tap into your value system. Because you do have young men who are impressionable, who really have not had that experience of someone pouring into them where they say, hey, listen, young man, You know, you don't need to be doing this. You know, like you can easily look at a person and see the lifestyle that they're living or the things that they're most interested in, and tell yourself, no, I'm not going to engage in that because this person is going to take you down a dark path. Like, let's say, for instance, you're dealing with someone and they find a way to get you into altercations, right? So now you're finding yourself potentially getting into trouble, getting into fights. Now, as a young man, it's highly likely that you're going to find yourselves in some beefs as a result of a woman, whether it's someone trying to check you or disrespect you in front of her, trying to kind of exert his masculinity. You just have to really be tapped into your value system to know, listen, I'm not going to let you compromise my future, and I'm not going to let you compromise my peace today. And I think that it's important for you to have people who can pour into you, who can allow you to see, hey, I didn't have to do all that in order for me to find my lady. So you don't have to do the same either, you know. But you have to have that influence. And if it's not at home, it has to be someone that you can trust and someone that you can actually grow and learn from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think something else too is, you know, obviously I touched on just the ability of teaching them, you know, as they go. But as was said in the comments, a lot of young people aren't even really in relationships. They're just hopping all the way from A to Z. So, you know, as times change, I'm sure, you know, that dynamic is getting worse, right? So that's the other piece. What do you guys think you need? How much do you need to make? How much money do you need to make as a single man to be, we'll say, in typical city, to what do you think that number is to live, we'll say, to live comfortable and be able to save? I mean, you guys got a figure on that, and we'll just say that for the most part, you don't really have bills. You don't have bills in terms of no student loans or anything like that, no credit card. You know, what do you think? What do you guys think is reasonable if you've handled your bills pretty good?
Yeah, I think that, you know, the philosophy that I really have is that you really should be investing into your future. Like, as young as possible, you need to put yourself in position to go ahead and take advantage of compounding interest. And doing things that don't help you contribute towards your compounding accounts, it just doesn't really make sense, you know. And I'd say probably 80,000 maybe to start the conversation is just difficult depending upon the city, because 80,000 in New York is the same thing as 40,000 maybe in like some other cities. So it's really challenging. I'd say you're in the conversation maybe around 75, 80,000 in like a lower income city. You might start to have like a comfortable life, or at least have a little bit of the spoils of life. I say that it's really challenging if you're really impressionable, if you're moved by social media and this travel lifestyle. You could easily go down a rabbit hole. But I'd say that 80,000 is a starting point. But like the real, like the sweet spot is really like having a conversation about 200, 300,000, putting yourself in a really, really good situation. But maybe you could start with Chipotle at like 80. I don't know. Something along those lines. Chipotle, hiking, you know, picnics or something like that. Hikes. I don't know.
All right, Chipotle and hiking.
I think I agree. I don't have much to add to that. I think Sim hit that on the head. I would say 80 for most cities, and then your more expensive cities, you need to add another 50K to that. And I think that's a good place to start, but you don't finish there. I will agree with Sim. I think everybody should be shooting for becoming an accredited investor, if nothing else. But I still think the key is though to really gravitate on what skills you're going to identify with to do that, and then start taking advantage of the systems that wherever you're currently working may have. Because I'll give you an example. So over Christmas, I was talking to one of my nieces. She worked at Walmart. And I told her, well, you've been at Walmart all this time. you need to do something with yourself. I said, what you should do, because me and her talk all the time. She take my advice on a lot of stuff. I told her what you need to do is get into Walmart's training program, go get you some skills. So now you can get into management. And then since you know you're not going to stay at Walmart, go over to Target, go over to somewhere else where it's a little bit more different customer base. But with that, you'll have skills now to get a higher salary. So it's those type of things that I think people need to really start paying attention to, because it's not about where you currently at. It's really about where you going and where you want to end up at is more important. Because where you at now is temporary, and it could be temporary one or two ways. It could be temporary based on you strategize the outcome, or it could be temporary whereas you get laid off and you didn't have a plan. So you got to think about those type things. And I'm just an advocate of that. And like Sim said, I am kind of like a monk when it comes to that, because I think we have spent too much time now moving the line in the sand. And I'm just one now at this point. I'm just going to draw a line, and the ones that want to come, going to come, and the other ones just going to be casualties of war. So that's all I got.
Good deal, man. Yeah, really.
We do got a question too, Perry, when you get a chance. Anya asked a question in the chat.
Right. Let me see. Right. Is this it?
Yep.
All right. Yeah. What do you all think women can do to help men feel more comfortable? I think that's a good one. I think it's, I honestly think it's,
Perry, tell us what your wife did to win you over based upon this understanding right there. How did she make you comfortable?
Well, see, that's what I was gonna say. A lot of it is through a lot of it's just through conversation, right? But one thing that I say, I believe, and when I say a problem, it's not really a problem, but I believe good women have a marketing issue because they're quiet. They're living their life doing their thing. You know, the ones that are the problem are loud. That's the ones that are loud all out there. You can see that all day. But it's the quiet ones who are just doing their thing, going about, that sometimes they're overlooked just because they're quiet. They're not noticed because they're just living their life. They're going to work. They're not trying to be out in front of everybody. So no one knows, right? No one knows what's going on because they're just doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? So I think it is, when I say marketing, I'm just saying, I think it is trying to put themselves in the right position, the right place for men, first of all, and then having those conversations. Because trust me, with all the pressure that is on men nowadays, and it just does seem to be so much about the paycheck, and it doesn't seem to be an interest in, because I always say this, you can look and see where someone's headed. And you just ask a couple questions. You can be like, it's like, just based on their age, like, okay, you're 30, you've been doing this for 12 years. Okay, what different positions have you done here? You've been doing the same position, but like, that's someone who we can make the assumption that's someone who probably isn't really trying to move up. And it's okay if that doesn't work for you, but you just got, so I say that to say, if you're just asking the questions, but also more so making it known that, and that's if you are, that you're trying to grow with them, that you I think it's about being honest. This is what I want, but I'm willing to grow into that. That's what I think. I just don't think there's enough conversation anymore about those types of things, about just being upfront and honest what they're looking for. And that was the thing. Like my wife, we discussed it. We discussed debt. We discussed everything up front. We knew what type of lifestyle we wanted, and it lined up. So, it was work like, and I can tell you right now, she's like, hey, I want a lavish mansion, $5 million. Okay, well, it's been good, but I'm not that dude. I mean, I wasn't going to front. That's not me. So let's not waste any time. You know what I'm saying? But see, people aren't doing that. They're hopping into the sheets. They're going all the way from A to Z. And now she or he wants to pop up. Oh, I want this. Well, now we got a kid. That's a problem. Or now we're married. and I want to leave. And it's like, well, you should have never been together in the first place, but y'all ain't talk about it. So that's what I personally think is most of it is just really a discussion. But I will say that good women go unseen because, you know, they say the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, they're not squeaky. They're just quiet, going about their business. But good men are too. You know, a lot of good men kind of just keep to themselves. Men kind of keep to themselves anyway. So they're just kind of doing their own thing a lot of times. So there is some similarities with men, but I do notice that more so with women. You guys, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, to me, I appreciate and I value someone who really doesn't have a strong social media presence, you know. That lets me know that they're not looking for a whole lot of external validation from the world, you know. And I tend to like women. I'm not going to say they're homely, but they have like a bohemian, crunchy granola sort of energy, the natural hairs, and I like. So those are people that I just see that they don't subscribe to like social norms a lot of times, and they kind of move to the beat of their own drum, but they are smart, so that they're intelligent people. And if I can't have a conversation with you, it makes it really difficult for me to really go forward, because being cute only lasts so long until you get bored with it. I think that being able to show that you're humble, you're not really interested in the same things that everyone else is doing out here in society, and you have the ability to take something that you see, whether it's like someone that you're dating, and you can see maybe some parts of them that they don't see themselves. They say it's hard to see the picture if you're in it. You can say, hey, listen, you know, let's figure out a way for us to get you there. Let's both go on this journey together, you know, instead of maybe having this arms folded, you should be already accomplished sort of mentality. I think that willingness is the main thing that I really am saying, you know, someone who shows a willingness to be themselves while at the same time contributing positively to your life.
And let me, and I'm gonna let the intentional go, but I do want to just circle around real quick because I really talked about kind of like the aspect. I don't think I really closed that off. I talked about the aspect of more so it was more finding them, but it's asking the questions to know what they want, what they're looking for, right? And then from that, I believe if you know what said man wants by talking to him, then you are able to, and then comes the question was, how can you help them? Then comes the encouragement, right? To be able to encourage them, and to be able to just be a partner. But I do think just it's that revealing who you are up front to make sure it fits. That way they know that, okay, with all the pressure, they're okay with me. They know where I'm trying to go, and they're okay supporting that. So I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that. What do you think, Intentional?
So what do I think women can do to make men feel more comfortable? I think the biggest thing is I just think they need to first listen. Listen from the standpoint of understanding and not necessarily from the standpoint of judgment. I also think what women can do is be clear on what they're looking for. Because I think a lot of times now it goes back to Sim's point. It just seems like the women also is not clear on what they want. They just going off of what the social norms are. So I think being clear on what they want, but I also think that the women got to also understand that you can't expect something out somebody else that you're not willing to commit to or become part of or improve on also. I think you got to kind of look at it from a more humanistic perspective versus a selfish perspective, or all about myself perspective. So I think those are the two things, the kind of I think those are the three components I would say is key, because I think once you do that, it allow, if it's the right guy, it at least allow him to know that he feel like he has somebody that's gonna kind of work. They can work together and not necessarily from the standpoint of just, what's in it for me. Because that seems like the biggest thing now is more about what's in it for me and not necessarily what's in it, how we going to build this, or what is us going to look like. And I think those are some of the key things. And also too, I think we got to really identify the key point is it's definitely for the younger generation. We have to identify, and I think a woman has to sit back and really identify with someone that is married to make sure that they don't have feminist beliefs. I think that's because that's something that's crept into the school systems. And I think a lot of times it allows maybe some women, not all, but it allows a woman to have the mindset that it's all about me, when the reality is, if you're looking for a long-term relationship, it should be about us.
All right. And I want to, you can guys let me know if I skipped something. Caramel Drip had a comment. I'm surely not making it easier for any man that wants to be with me. Well, why would I do that? Either he and I are on the same page, or he has to go. So I don't know what that was exactly in reference to. But I don't see any way to be on the same page without the communication. And I guess it was in reference to the question. I'm thinking when you say easier by more comfortable, but I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. But I still think that still comes with conversation. To me, what do you guys think? Or maybe I might have missed something.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to tell. I'm upon what Tim was saying. Thinking about it, I think this is where like the breakdown happens when a young lady is not able to see her father in the man that she's dating. It really keeps her from being able to feel at home with what you guys have going on. Because generally speaking, a young lady's father is the first person that they fall in love with or admire. And if they don't get an opportunity to experience that, like they end up just being lost, like where's home? What feels right? Now, is social media what I should feel is home? Or is it a situation where my father was humble? He came from humble beginnings. My mother stuck through with him, and they figured it out. They took whatever they had and they used it in order for them to get to the place that we're at today. They didn't have everything, but they raised us with solid values and a humble upbringing. But we still ultimately know that the greatest treasure and gift we can have is each other and not items and things. If you don't have someone who has that foundation, even if it comes from a situation where the father was not there, then it makes it really difficult for someone to find contentment with something that's simple and not opulent, loud, and flashy. That's just my thoughts on that.
You have anything to add? And let me full and not. I was actually reading another comment. I'm just going to pop this one up really quick. The last one said the question. That question needs to be answered in full and not in part. Those conversations can be dangerous when not fully addressed. So I'm probably skipping around, but I was just trying to get the context behind that. Did you have anything to add to that yourself, intentional? And I'll just pop that back up there so you see it. But
I don't really understand. I can't answer a question. I don't understand what we're referring to.
Yeah, I wasn't sure specifically because obviously sometimes when the conversation is going on between the chat, you don't know if it's addressing something you specifically said.
Comment or drip, please. Reference. What was you referring to in this question?
And I'm gonna leave that there. But another question that I did see that said, "Do your wives contribute financially?" So I'm the only one up here currently married. My wife does, and I've addressed this at other times. That's why for me, right, to each their own. I will say for me, that's why when I see all these conversations online, um, about the splitting of money and all that. It's laughable to me. That to me, that's you're just asking for trouble. We have, we are a family. We are a unit. We both make good money. We contribute to the house. We pay ourselves out of that the same amount. Every paycheck that goes into our own account just to do stuff we want to do stuff for each other, whatever. Rest of it goes in there. So we save from that. We do everything from that. That's how we do it. We have never fought over money. Not one time. Never. Because we're taking care of the household. That's the thing. That's how we do it. So not saying everybody should do that, but the conversations personally, from my view of literally you have people living in a house and one of them's darn near starving and one of them's living good. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess in my opinion. And I think that's why finance is one of the number one reasons that, it's the number one reason for divorce. That's exactly why, because you can't, that's no different than you wouldn't want your kids to be in your house living poor, struggling while you're balling. Right. So, I did want to address that, but yeah, my wife, my wife contributes, and I think that also helps for you to go about it like a team to keep on pushing. Because you think about it too. Think about if you didn't do that. Let's just say one person made 100 and one person made 50. And it comes to it. Now, if you're looking at like 150, you kind of work together to grow that to get this house you want. If you're looking at it separately and one person's like, well, I want this house. And you're like, man, I'm only making 50. I ain't trying to get that house. You become pulling against each other. You're pulling it. You're like, man, that's too much. It's not. I don't see how that works. I mean, people make different things work, but I feel like if you're in it as a unit, then you can say, okay, because like I said, we look back at that pot. Here's what we got. If we want to go get this, what do we need to get this pot to? And what's the best way to do that? Do I need to level up to try to do this? Like, should I take that next step? Because then you're looking at the whole family as a whole. And then you start to say, well, now if I do that, what about the boys? You won't ever see the boys. Okay, maybe we need to stay where we're at because it's important for us to be there for them. So I think that's why you can't separate that thing personally. So I'm sorry to go on and on, but I just see some of that and it just blows my mind how people wonder why their situation's funky and they're living like two separate lives, basically.
Man,
but
they say 50-50 is like it's like a curse, man. It's like, no, I don't want no 50-50, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So absolutely. Absolutely.
Because my question to that is, if somebody don't want 50-50 and he does everything, what are you going to be doing? Like, where do you bring value, or what do you bring to help move the family along wherever the goals may be? Is my question.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't understand that, because for at least from all the successful relationships that I saw, even in my own house with my mom and dad, they always had to work together because that was the only way it seems like you could truly move the family forward. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It goes to, I think that was the perfect example, Perry, but with the house, one person made 100, the other person made 50. The one that makes 50 is going to be more timid to do stuff because they feel like that's outside of their range, because they feel like it's two people, but they doing their own separate thing. Right. Whereas if they feel like it's the pot is together. So I think that was a perfect analogy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think. And I think you have to also ask what type of person you are. Look, if you're, we got this relationship. If you're just making tons of money, there's still everybody's, you would hope, is contributing somehow. But if your wife doesn't work, or is a stay-at-home mom, right? There's, and you got kids and stuff like that, the responsibility is at home. But for the average person, see, the thing for me is like, that's why I think you analyze what type of person you are. That's why you should be asking, well, that's another question early on. Do you ever want to stay at home? because of how I was raised, and all the women in my life have always went out and got it. I don't know how to process you staying at home. I personally don't know how, because I've never seen that. So I don't know, but what I be thinking, yo, like, you just chilling. Like, because I can see a situation where you stay at home, I'm going to work, I'm getting it. And like, I left, the dishes were dirty, I came home, they're dirty. It's like, yo, I'm out here, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, but that's different if you got a butler, right? It's like, you know, it's just, so all those situations make a big difference. And certain people are built for that. Like I say, a trophy wife, certain people are built for that. And certain people got the pockets for that. Certain people, because you see people too, right? There's a lot of multimillionaires, even billionaires, their wives have a job. They go and do, or they're a part of something. They go to the job and they're like, well, I handle this. I know personally people, millionaires, they may handle a facet of the business. They're not just sitting at home, right? So I think it's some of that. But yeah, I think when you start to split that up, it's just hard for me to imagine like someone who doesn't contribute, you know. And and we mostly, because of society, we look at it like, is there even such thing as a trophy husband? I don't, I mean, it's just not something you hear, right? So, but yeah, I think for me, I think it's definitely important that, that both contribute. You know, my wife and I just today were talking about, different stuff we got coming up. Some of it I got to travel. Some of it she has to for different reasons, and just like, okay, let's lay this out. Let's go ahead and just get these plane tickets, figure this out, you know, go ahead and get these plane tickets and get all this and get everything in a row. So it's like meetings, man. It's like, sometimes it's like, you know, it's like you have meetings at work. Like, hey, we need to sit down and meet and get this hammered out or whatever. But yeah, but anyway, what, you guys got anything else?
No, I think she mentioned what she was referring to.
Okay, let me see.
She said,
I think I saw
9:48
right here. No. Let me see. I thought I saw it. I thought it said the other side of Ina's question. I thought I saw it, but I could be wrong. Let me know if you see it anywhere.
Yeah, 9:51.
You saw it 9:51?
Yeah.
Oh, right here. Yep. That's what I thought I saw. I was responding to the other side of Ina's question from a dating single standpoint. Okay. I got you. Okay. But yeah, I just think this is something important, because I do think, I thought this would be interesting to talk about tonight, because things are moving. Now, this is me personally. You guys may see it different. I recognize the biggest shift in what's going on that I've ever recognized is since the pandemic. I started to look and say, man, a lot of people are screwed. Like, from the inflation to, like, everybody was having a good time, you know, busting down their stimulus check, you know, going in, you know, putting it into crypto, putting it in the stock market. Everybody knew the stock market. Everybody. Oh, I got me some Tesla. I got this. I got, you know, I got me some Amazon. And the party stopped real quick. And the interest rate went from 2.8 to about 8. You know, it's like everything shifted. And I really started thinking, we've got all this stuff online about, you know, being single, being pimps, being players, going out on dates, women, you know, that's the men, you know, women, you're not taking me here. You know, I'm not going there. We've seen more people that are essentially selling their body now to get paid. So I just thought it was important to focus on, okay, let's set what it looks like, at least for a single man. What's that really look like? And for the majority, and a lot of them, it's not even what they make, it's their lifestyle. It outpaces it. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. And I would never suggest that you go get with someone just to pair up to make it. That's crazy. I don't think that's right, because I think you got to get yourself right first. You should. That's my opinion. But I thought it'd be cool to just say, okay, you know, what's the average person? And I believe the average person is struggling or outspending. That's what I honestly believe. And you know, we've talked about this stuff. Many guys have talked about this countless times, and I don't really want to go down that road, but you know, it's almost like you got to do a background check now. For real. You know, we talked about the credit score, the hard cutoff on the numbers, and sometimes I can go overboard on that, but as I get older, you know, I'm married now, but it's like I just don't know how those things are really important, right? So that's why I thought this would be cool, just to really, you know, cut down on some of the fantasy talk that you see out there and really focus on that. And remember that what's the average car payment is what? $700 now or something?
Yeah.
Jeez, man. So that's the thing. That's the crazy thing.
That's how much it is for real, Perry. 700. The average
My car
payment.
Look, man, I done told you, bro. I'm on the third Altima, man, in a row. I get the same thing every single time because I ain't trying to be flashy. I'm just gonna put a ton of miles on it. I know how to work on it myself if I choose to, and I keep it simple. So I always put a big enough down payment to where, and I want to be out the car financing game. I don't want to give them nothing, but I put enough on it. And I'm not a car guy either, so that's part of it. I'd rather have a nicer house personally, but I put enough to keep it. I've never had a car payment over $350 ever.
Yeah,
so keep it low.
That's correct, Perry. The average car payment right now, based off of Experian, in the third quarter of 2023, the average car payment for a new car is $726, and for a used car is $533.
What?
And here's the question. And look, those people who want to be fancy and have that fancy stuff, like my wife's car is certainly nicer, right? It's nicer than, when I say nicer, it's more expensive than mine. But my thing is I got a screen, you got one. It doesn't matter. You might have this. Look, I love this, the BMW 750. I love the S550 Benz. But you got heated seats, I got heated seats. You got heated steering wheel, I got heated steering wheel. Sunroof, I got one. It's like, so the thing is all that don't do nothing for me. I'm going to go to work, I'm going to get out of it, I'm going to come home. It just doesn't do anything for me. So that's why I keep it. But I'm very simple, but I understand for those who have to have it, you know, why they do. So that's just how I am, though.
That's a lot of money, man.
Cryptonomics said it best. People got that bad credit.
For real, man.
But it makes sense though. You gotta think about it. Interest rates went up, rates went up. So the cost of doing everything went up. It used to be, it was 6 something near the beginning of last year. It ended at 7 something.
Hey, he's right though. He said Perry got that deluxe Altima. But see, here's the funny thing.
Exactly.
It's funny. That was my justification though, was okay, look, if I'm gonna stay with the Altima, I'm gonna be at the top though, right? Because I'm like, that's the thing. I just when I get a car, I do want the technology I want to have at least the newest technology. And mine, I got the one, it'll drive itself now. I'm not in the lowest model Altima, but I'm not, you know, it'll self-drive or whatever, but yeah, but I'm still, think about it. My payment at the end of the day, I put a down payment on. My payment is $349 or something like that. So I keep it. That's how I am though. But see, I don't get on here and tell other people to do that because some people want to spend, but I would never have, it wouldn't matter. Say it got tight. It'll never be questioned the car payment. Nobody's like, I'm not ever questioning, do I need to sell the car? It ain't that deep, you know? So, but yeah.
Yeah, I've never had a payment over $249. That's the most expensive one I had.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I've never But then again, I've never financed a car over $12,000 too. And that was almost 10 years, almost 20 years ago. So
Okay.
yeah, the last couple of cars I've had, they've been 8,000, but I buy them from the state auction. They have like really low miles. They might have been former government cars or something like that. And I
Hey,
just
no,
just ride through, man.
my bad. Mark my words. No joke. This next crypto cycle, I'll be on here. You know, but I thought you had an Altima, but now I got a truck. It'd be because I bought that bad boy in cash, though. That's like, so when if I was going to get something like that, I'm going to buy it in cash, though. I'm not going to have a payment. That's just how I am. I'm not going to get a nicer car and have $1,000 payment, though. Not going to happen. I think that's crazy. It's a waste of money, in my opinion.
Chat, what's a reasonable car payment in your opinion at this point?
0.
Right? Cash, dollars. Is it true that any transaction over $10,000 cash gets reported to the FBI?
No, it sends a ping and the bank sends it, and they just do a monitor check on transactions. But okay. Yes, that's true. Based off the U.S. Patriot Act of 19 something, I can't remember the year.
Gotcha.
But once again, right? It always boils down to what's good for you. You know, like just because I do that doesn't mean I tell my wife, no, you gotta get the Maxima. No. She's got a Volvo and it's nice, right? So it's like, you know, so she can get what you want, but it's just like, that's kind of how you always treat it. You know, I've just always had an approach. Like for me, cars isn't the big thing for me. I keep it fairly simple.
But that's why I think that you know, going back to just the topic of the conversation of the original question let's start it off with, I think that's why it's so important why, you know, the young men need to make sure they have the conversation and be able to communicate what their long-term outcome is. Because here's the thing. Every woman, if they are dating, even if they ask those questions, they get good at communicating it, but then they'll get clear on what they actually want because they keep it in the forefront.
Right.
And I think that's just so key because think about it. Think about if they dating and they want a relationship, they end up getting with a woman. Let's just say she want a more luxury vehicle and they don't. Now you got to disconnect with that. So, because all those little pockets is what leads to the second biggest reason of divorce, which is finances.
Yep.
Because they don't have a conversation about finances. Finances is this pie in the sky. We only talk about it when we already in a critical situation that we got to make a quick decision. And that's the wrong time to do it.
Yeah. And you know, that's what's so funny about the way people judge people. To me, is funny because think about this. So that's why I laugh, because I see the whole Cheesecake Factory. Like I see someone saying that who is not making that much money anyway, right? Up here talking like that. And it's like, my wife's done very good for herself and she's not talking like that. So when we met, I had a Toyota Camry. Now I got rid of my car. Why? And it was Altima. I got rid of it because my job had bought me a car. So I used a car at work. And so I actually didn't even have the one I ended up with. I had I was using a rental, but I had it for probably a year or more. The Camry, waiting to get the new one I was going to get. Now, what if she had said, "Oh, he's got a Camry. He probably don't make that much money." But some people think that way. I mean, that's crazy. The car wasn't even mine. And see, I got rid of mine because I wanted to. I got rid of mine because I didn't want to have I just didn't need it. It was just sitting that long, and I'm like, I don't need it. I don't want to pay insurance on it. They're paying the insurance, so it was really to save insurance. The car was paid off, so I got rid of it, and someone needed it, so I cut them a really good deal on it, and boom, and got rid of it. And so I'm just saying, where people think that way, she could have thought, oh, he should have something, you know, nicer or whatever. But no, it's just always been that way. But I think those conversations are very important. And not to mention the car she had, I already kind of knew the standard. She had an Infinity. That's what she liked. So I assumed, hey, that's kind of that's the level she's going to stay at. That's the level she likes or whatever. And but she's always been good with money too. So, my wife was making out budget spreadsheets literally at 16 years old. And I asked her early on, I said, I asked her mom directly. I said, did y'all teach her that? They're like, nah, she just always like to know where her money's going. I'm like, oh, that's a keeper. Like you doing that at 16? Like that's not normal. Right. I had to get a little older and then hear Dave Ramsey. She just naturally did that. She's still got some Lowe's stock from from her first job at 16. That's just kind of how she is, So it's just stuff like that. But yeah, just asking those questions is important because look, it's like an interview. Someone told me this, the best you ever gonna get out of somebody on a job is at the interview. You ain't gonna hire them and they all of a sudden get better. No. They either stay here or go down. The only way that you get better is if you're both pushing each other. And that's even a job. If you're growing together, other people on the job, the owner gets better, you get better because y'all are pushing upwards. But in a nutshell, the interview is the best thing you get. So you better ask all those questions. You better ask all those questions up front. 2 weeks in, we was talking. No, not even. 2 weeks in, we were talking about how much debt you got.
Man, if a woman pulled out a budget to me, and she was nice looking, and she seemed like she was going places, I definitely lock it down, man. That's rare. I was in a thrift store and I heard the 17-year-old boy talking about him and his family have spreadsheets, man. And I was like, man, geez, some people are just living out here.
But some of us don't get that, right? Some of us, and I don't know where she got it from, man. I don't really know, to be honest. She's just really smart. She just thought it'd be important. Me, well, I didn't necessarily, but the way I grew up, I was always scared to spend anything. Because I grew up relatively poor, I would say, broke for the most part. We did not have a lot at all, but so I was always just wanting to hold on to it. That's just kind of how I was. So, but I think it's important though to figure those things out and ask those questions. It's extremely important. Let's hit a couple more comments, and then I'll see if you guys have anything else. And we can wrap up. Cryptonomics said it's a Gen Z. Said it's a lot of Gen Zs out there struggling. Keep hearing people laid off too. Yeah. There are people definitely. There's definitely layoffs and stuff going on. I do think it's getting worse. Let me see. Caramel Drip said, my daddy raised me budgeting and saving. My piggy bank was full at 5 or 6 years old. I like that though. And that's how it should, and that's really how it should be. That is exactly how it should be. A said, I needed to hear this conversation today. Said Lowe's stock up 1,000 since 2008. Yeah, she still got it. First job was Captain D's. I was my first one was I worked at Burger King and worked at KFC. I like this Birdman hand rub. I love that. Oh man. So man, I always enjoy these conversations, and look, it really is about income and finance and those things, but these things, your money really intersects all of this: dating, family, all of those things. So that's why I think it's all really intertwined. And I think this is definitely an important conversation. And look, let's face it. If you're single and, a lot of people, we talk about this, but you think, well, two people together are better off. Yeah, because a lot of the housing expenses do get sucked up under two incomes, right? But if you're not on the same page about where you're going, you're going to have other problems. And certainly if you're married, somebody's going to end up with an even bigger problem. So the answer to me is get yourself right. That's the answer to me. It's about getting yourself right, and then you try to find someone else who is right, and then you got the right combination. Because I know I talked to you guys about, I think I've mentioned before, my kids go to private school right now. They will go to public schools. They're young, but I do think about all the people who couldn't do that. And I do think about, because honestly, I don't even know anymore. Like when I was growing up, it was daycare. All I can remember, I felt like you just go there and play. Like, I don't know. My kids have been learning, like actually learning like a regular school since the day they went. So I think about how hard will it be to catch up? I don't know. I ended up fine, right? So but I do think when you're able to set yourself up, you are able to give them an advantage. That's what so just stuff like that, I think is important. So I think these conversations though are definitely important. What do you guys have? Sim, you got anything to add to the overall conversation, or anything you want to recap?
Yeah, so just to follow up with what you said, Perry, like I think that a lot of this intersects, and just like Cryptonomics stated, layoffs are coming down the pipe, guys. And if you're doing anything, you come here, you listen to us, we give you some insight on some things that we would do. It's not advice, but it's just things that we would do if we had an opportunity to do it again. Now, there is something that is happening out here that the government really mandates prior to any company laying anyone off. Like, this is really good, right? So there's an act called the WARN Act. It's the Workforce. Lord, I just had it. Anyway, it is. Let me pull it up. It's the Workforce. Lord, why can't I get it? Work. So it's the Worker Adjustment and Retaining Notification Program, WARN. So you look up WARN and then the state that you're in. And the state requires all companies that are doing layoffs or closures to actually post 60 days ahead of the layoff actually happening. They post it up there and it will say the name of the company. It will say how many people will be impacted. It will say the notice date, and then 60 days from that notice date at least will be the date that the layoffs actually happen. Don't allow yourself to be blindsided by these companies and the actions that they're taking. Make sure you're protecting yourself and putting yourself in position to not be displaced in the midst of company making their own adjustments ahead of the first quarter or what have you. Put yourself in position, make it a habit to take a look at the WARN reports for your specific state. It will outline the county, the business, the amount of people impacted, and also the date by which the layoff is actually going to happen. It's just kind of like a precautionary method that will be very valuable to you. That way you won't allow yourself to be completely blindsided. We are a finance channel, and if you don't have finances coming in, it contributes to a whole lot of distress otherwise. So that's what I want to share with you all. My name is Simsia. My name and my channel is my name right there here on YouTube. And I have conversations about putting ourselves in position similar to what we're talking about tonight.
Absolutely. What do you got for us, Intentional Millionaire?
So I say for everyone out there, just make sure that you re-identify what you want for you financially. In that process, learn discipline. And then once you get disciplined, continue to engulf yourself in information, and you can continue to execute on the information, also learn more skills. And just go out there, and if you don't believe this is for you, go out and find somebody that can help you with your belief, because I still believe that most people have two issues. One, they don't believe in themselves, and then they don't execute on the information. So I think that you should go out, do those two things, and then just sit down and identify somebody else that you can consult with, you can counsel with, and get advice with, so you can make sure you stay on track, stay on path. And I think the youngest person out there have to learn how to manage and deflect distractions. I think until you do that, your young years is going to be tougher than they need to be. Because I can say, as somebody that's a little bit older now, the challenge I have even at my age is the distractions. You have so much information in front of you, so much stuff that distract you, and so many inputs on how you should do things that you can get so flabbergasted on just doing something. So it could be information overload, paralysis analysis. All those things can happen at once. So you got to sit down, identify what do you want, and then find one path and go down that one path. Find one or two people that you jive with, that you feel similar to you as a person or what you like. And then you just start carving out that path and deflect everything else. Because if you don't learn to do that, everything else is going to be hard in every other facet of your life, whether it be financially, spiritually, relationship-wise, mentally. All of that is going to kind of fall apart. So we really got to do a job in that area. And that's all I have to say. I say you can do it. It's going to take some work. Nothing good is easy. But at the end, there's a lot of good to be had.
Hey, thank you guys very much. And I want to thank each and every person for joining us, the Finance Bros, again. And we will be back next week. You all take care.